Welcome to another episode of the STR Sisterhood. I'm your host, Stacey St. John. And as always, I just want to say a big thank you for inviting me into your day today. Now, before we dive into this episode, I want to share a quote with you that I recently read that resonated with me. And it says, "The most alluring thing a woman can have is confidence." Those beautiful words come to us from the one and only Beyonce. Little Sasha Fierce joining our podcast today. All right, in this episode, we are sitting down with Amelia McGee, and we are hearing all about her journey of how she went from 1 to 41 doors in just 5 years. This girl is a rock star, and I cannot wait for you to meet her. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into my conversation with Amelia. So today we are here with Amelia McGee, and we have so many fun things to talk about. But first, Amelia, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to get into our conversation.
I know, we're like two sisters from another mister, and we just met for the first time. So this will be a really fun convo. First, tell us a little bit about who you are and where you live.
Yeah. So like Stacey said, my name is Amelia. I live and invest in Des Moines, Iowa, born and raised here in Iowa. And my portfolio is currently 41 doors. But I started investing. I did a flip in 2019 and then purchased my first long-term rental in 2020 during the COVID boom. So been at it for around 5 years now.
Amazing. Amazing. And I'm curious, you said you started with a flip. Talk to us a little bit about how you were introduced to the world of real estate and what excited you about it.
Well, I've always been someone that's known I didn't want to work for somebody else for the rest of my life. I just wasn't sure exactly what else I would do. I had I knew I was going to be an entrepreneur, just wasn't sure with what. So I would say growing up, I never lived in a move-in ready house. My parents were always buying fixer-uppers and then they would fix them up, live there for many years and eventually sell. But my parents are both very handy. So I came from that kind of background, although my parents were not in real estate. And I always watched the HGTV shows and saw the flippers on there making these large chunks of money. And I thought, well, how hard can that be? Can't be that hard to get started. I'm looking for something else. Wouldn't it be great if in addition to my full-time job, I could flip one property a year and make, $30,000 to $50,000 extra per year. That's great. Here in Iowa, that's a lot of money. And so that's kind of how the idea happened. Once I got into flipping and completed my first flip, which was all done DIY, I realized how much hard work it was and that I didn't want to be a flipper. I had somehow stumbled across long-term buy and holds during that time period and decided I'm going to use my profits from this flip and buy rentals with it.
Mm-hmm. I love it. And I got started in real estate by accident. But I had long-term buy and holds, and much like you, I wanted to use the profits from my flip in order to purchase additional properties. I do remember my first flip where I felt like the first day when there was water like pouring in from the first floor to the basement, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm on my own HGTV show right now because this is exactly what they show on TV. Stuff goes wrong from the start. So did you take any courses? How did you learn how to execute a flip? Or was it just because of your upbringing?
I actually never did take a course. I am a self-taught investor. I utilized a lot of free resources on the internet, a lot of Bigger Pockets forums, back when the forums used to be popping way more than they are now, a lot of YouTube, and a couple of books. I wouldn't say books are my main source, but I also think that I knew just enough to be dangerous but I never felt like I needed to know everything to get started. And I feel like that's where a lot of newer investors get hung up, is they feel like they need to know it all prior to making that first purchase. And quite frankly, you just can't know everything there is to know.
Oh my gosh.
You'll learn so much by just purchasing that first property than you ever will reading, watching YouTube, etc.
Oh, absolutely. The firsthand experience that you gain. And I always share this too with my students, and I'm sure you do as well. You can read books, you can watch videos, you can take courses on being a parent. And until that baby pops out of your belly, you have no idea what's coming for you. You know what I mean? It's that real world experience that that really changes the game. And I'm sure you're like me. I still learn stuff every day. How about you?
All the time. Constantly learning new things. Not even learning new things, but just learning how to do things better than I've done them in the past, becoming more efficient, learning how to make more money with the properties I already own. I think part of being a good investor too is just being a lifelong learner and a problem solver. I would say those are like the two biggest attributes of an investor, which I'm both of. But yeah, just be open-minded, willing to learn from others. You don't know it all, and you don't have to know it all.
Right. I love what you said a moment ago, that you've always kind of known you wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I think so many people in our space don't view themselves as entrepreneurs. So I feel like I'm on a soapbox all the time talking about being an entrepreneur. And it just so happens that our product is a house that we're renting, either as a short-term, a midterm, a long-term rental. But we are an entrepreneur. Our product is the real estate that we are renting. How have you applied, or has it been difficult for you to apply that methodology in the world of real estate investing in your own world? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I actually didn't call myself a business owner until probably a year ago, which, we are entrepreneurs and we own real businesses. I think that's another thing that people who own properties forget, is that this is a living, breathing business. It should have systems and processes in place, business procedures that you're following. It should have all the things that a real business has. And so, it was really tough for me to switch from just feeling like I was just a real estate investor. Oh, I invest in real estate, to, oh no, I'm a business owner. There's people who have small businesses out there that make half of what real estate investors make, and they're still calling themselves small business owners. So I'm like, why is it with investors we don't call ourselves business owners?
I know. I
crazy.
Totally agree. I totally agree. And I feel like it's just reframing the perspective. And once you do that, it's almost like, oh, this is what a business owner does. Like you talked about. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You have to almost like fake it a little bit. Like you have to practice calling yourself a business owner. So you get into the habit and you train your brain to almost start thinking that way.
Girlfriend, I know we're sisters from another mister. You're talking about training your brain. OMG. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So act as if, if you're maybe listening and you have one property, or you're on your journey to your first property, you act as if you have done this for years. You act as if you are a multi-million-dollar business owner. When you commit to that approach, it is a game changer, and you do think differently. You absolutely think differently.
Yeah, agree 100%.
Okay, so you did a flip in 2019. You decided this whole flipping business is not flipping for me. And so, so you decided, hey, I want to get into buy and hold. Talk to us about how you went from one property to now having 41 doors 5 years later. What did that process look like for you?
Yeah. So the very first property I ever purchased after the flip was a triplex. And I think there's a few things that go into me now owning 41 doors. One is the market that I'm in. So I invest here locally in Des Moines, but also in smaller towns in Iowa where the purchase price is a lot lower. The caveat of that is, yes, there's pretty good cash flow there, but the appreciation and the equity build is a lot lower than some of those other markets. So it's great for me to make that residual income every month, but I'm not getting super wealthy off those properties. Another thing is I eventually ran out of my own money and had to start sourcing partners. I think this is a very common theme amongst investors. So my first partners were close friends and family who I knew and trusted, who had seen what I was doing on Instagram or Facebook because I share often there. I just was sharing because I was looking for a community. I never realized that it would turn into future partnerships. So I partnered with a couple people. So that also goes into my story, but then just being good with personal finance and saving money, living below my means, reinvesting everything. But that first property, just to give you a little bit of the numbers, I purchased it for $78,000, this triplex. It probably cash flows around $1,000 to $1,200 a month. But the 20% down payment on that was, $15,000. It was very low. So that's allowed me to scale very quickly. It's just the market I'm in and then partnerships and being good with money.
Yeah. Love that. Love that. I, again, like you, same way. So I have 43 properties that I'm currently managing. I own 10 of those and then, manage for other people as well. And with the 10 that are in my portfolio, I have a mix of stuff that I own, that my husband and I own 100% of, and then other properties that we're partners in. And I think, throughout that experience of working with partners, of vetting partners, I've got the most amazing partners. And I feel like, Amelia, I don't know about you, but you hear so many horror stories. And I feel like so many people are afraid of partnerships. What have been, from your experience, some of the key ways to source partners that you feel like, okay, we are totally in alignment? How do you go about that process?
That's such a great question. And it's very individualized too for each investor. I think it's really important with potential partners to have very open, candid conversations right off the bat about expectations that you both have for the partnership, whether that's a certain amount of money that you're looking to make, who's responsible for what duties, who's going to be on call when poop hits the fan, if it's a short term, just different conversations like that. And then as I've started investing more, I would also add on another layer there. I would say if you are going to be in a partnership with someone, it's basically a marriage. You should be able to look into their personal financials to a certain extent. I would ask for credit score and previous year's tax returns now as a more experienced investor, because there are a lot of stories out there of partnerships that have gone wrong. And I think it's just best to protect yourself. I also think if someone's not willing to show that information, that could be a red flag. So I would just say, have open conversations, vet your partners, even if you feel like you really know them. You never truly do know someone completely. But partnerships have been great for me. They have really been the way that I've been able to scale the way that I have. And I would encourage newer investors to be on the lookout for partners, be sharing what you're doing. I think that's the biggest thing that a lot of investors, a step they miss is just telling everyone what they're doing. I don't know if it's because we're embarrassed or again, we don't feel like we're business owners, but we have to get out of that mindset and start sharing with others that we are real estate investors and business owners.
Amen. Amen to that. No, and I think, again, one of the ways that I have found great partners is just by sharing what I'm doing. And And also, I think it's really important if you are in a situation where you are seeking a partnership, come at that as an opportunity for that partner. If you have any sort of experience, right? Or any sort of financial backing, whatever you're bringing to the table and you're seeking someone else to fill in a hole or fill in a gap, when you approach it from a place of abundance, and this is what I have to offer, and I'm proud of, either I've got money to bring to the table and I'm so excited to partner with someone for a buy and hold asset, whether it's a long-term, midterm, short-term rental, or I have years of experience in owning and operating short-term rentals. And you know what? I have a tremendous opportunity for someone who wants to put their money to work for them. Either way, it's an opportunity. Yep. And I feel like so many times when people are looking for partners, they're coming at it from a scarcity mindset, like, "Ooh, I need somebody in order to do X, Y, and Z," right? How did you learn how to talk about what you're offering as a partner?
Oh man, such a good question. Well, I read the book Raising Private Capital by Matt Faircloth. I think that was my first introduction to it. And he talks very heavily about how you are not asking for a favor, you're presenting an opportunity, which is very much what you're saying, Stacey. But, I at first, like I said, I started out with close friends and family. So that was a great way to test the waters because I already knew these people. We already had a prior relationship. It wasn't a super hard sell like it was with some other partners that I have, which weren't super hard sells, but I didn't know them that way. They were from out of state. They were just looking to park their money somewhere that could make a good return. So I think just knowing your own numbers very well, for me personally, is one way that I've been successful with presenting partnership opportunities, because in all the partnerships I've done, I have been the boots on the ground, the labor, the management, and all my partners have been the money partners. So I am presenting to them, here's how much you can expect to make on this opportunity on your money. And so just getting really good at running the numbers and presenting your assets. For me, for example, it's I can property manage. I can be the boots on the ground. You're in a really expensive market. We can make our money work a lot harder for us here. So just making sure that they know you're the expert in your area and you can get them a really good return on their money.
Love that. So talk to us a little bit about your portfolio. You have 41 doors. Are they all long-term, midterm, short-term? Like, what does that mix look like?
Yeah. So I have 3 short-term rentals, 12 midterm rentals, and then whatever is left over, I think that's maybe like 26 that are long-term. I love the midterm rental strategy. I would say that is like the most fun for me because it's the perfect mixture between long-term and short-term in terms of hands-on work, but also like a lot of good profit there. And I feel like I have a little bit of shiny object syndrome, where I like to, take the opportunities that are presented to me. If it's a good deal and it's short-term rental or midterm rental, I'm willing to learn that strategy to be able to make the most amount of money on it. So I don't feel like I'm pigeonholed in one strategy or the other. I've done flipping, I've done BRRRRs, I've raised private capital. I wouldn't necessarily say do all those things when you're first starting out, but I think good entrepreneurs realize opportunities and can act on them.
Yeah, 100% agree. And I love that you have a diverse mix of STR, MTR, and LTR. Say that 5 times fast. But I know you mentioned midterm is one of your favorite strategies. Talk to us a little bit about why that's the case and how you decide, if you're given a blank slate, how do you decide at which operational approach you're going to apply to that property?
Yeah, this is a great question. So the first is, why do I love midterm rentals so much? Well, personally, I found that they are great quality tenants. They usually take very good care of the properties. They're very respectful to work with because usually they're professionals. Either my target market is traveling nurses, but there's digital nomads, there's construction workers or corporate workers. So they're kind to work with. And the other big thing I would say, there's two others. One, you make more money than you would with a long-term rental. But at the same time, you're not having the daily interaction with the tenant like you are in a short-term rental. You're not dealing with cleaners every other day. You're not dealing with, different guests coming in and out of the property, wanting different things from you. So it's a much more hands-off approach while you're still getting a much better return on investment than you would with a long-term rental. In terms of how I'm deciding which strategy I want to do with a property, I mainly house traveling nurses. So there's a few things that I look for. One, typically 2 bedrooms and under. So 2 bed, 1 bed, and studios. Those are going to perform best if you're targeting traveling nurses. Just because they're usually traveling by themselves, maybe with one other person. They don't need a huge space. They're usually looking for a fairly budget-friendly place because they're trying to make as much money as possible on these assignments. That's the whole purpose of it. The second is just the proximity to hospitals, downtown areas, places where things are going on, good parking, and just an overall pretty safe neighborhood. Again, these are travelers, usually by themselves. They're wanting a nice, safe place to stay. So that's usually what I'm looking for when deciding, is this going to be an MTR or am I just going to do long-term with this?
Gotcha. And are you buying properties on the MLS? Are you sourcing off-market deals, a combination of both? Talk to us about that.
I actually just calculated this the other day. I think 70% of my properties have been purchased off market just through mainly word of mouth and just telling people what I do and them saying, oh, hey, by the way, there's this person I know selling a property, or I've purchased a few deals from a certain agent to where now he'll bring me pocket listings that have not hit the market yet. But I'm open to all opportunities. I don't pay for Facebook ads or anything like that to purchase properties, but I know that's one way a lot of investors do it. But I've had great success word of mouth and like driving or walking for dollars, seeing properties that maybe need some work done to them, and then reaching out to the owners, find their information online on the assessor's website or wherever, and just reaching out directly and ask if they are looking to sell their property.
Yeah. I love that. It's so funny. So back in the day, my husband and I've always loved real estate, but I just started investing later in life, I shall say. But back in the day, we used to, when we had no money, we've been married 30 years. So, like most people, when you start out, you have like 2 cents to rub together. So for entertainment, we would go walk model homes like on a Sunday. Okay. As a date, like that was our date time. Right. And it was free. And then when we had kids, our weekly date was at the grocery store because we thought, hey, we can leave the kids at home for an hour when they were old enough to do so. We can at least get like quiet time together walking through the cereal aisle, And now our Sunday afternoon dates are driving for dollars. We love driving for dollars. It's so fun. It's so fun. So It kind of shows you the evolution of my marriage, I guess. But I love that you're finding off-market deals. I think, in fact, I just talked about this last night in one of my accelerator meetings with my students. Like finding off-market deals, I feel like right now in 2024 can help you accelerate your portfolio so much faster because your typical MLS prices are going to be inflated.
Agree,
and it's
100%.
A whole different ball game, right? When you're buying off market, whole different ball game.
Yep. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. That's why, like I said, 70% of my portfolio has been off market. There's, so much less competition there. You have a longer negotiation period because you're not fighting other offers. And I found specifically driving for dollars has worked very well versus sending out mass mailers or whatever the case may be, because I'm very targeted with my search. And I can do research on the person. I can see if we have any commonalities. And then in the letter I send them or in the message that I send, I try to make some sort of a connection with them. Oh, I saw you on this property and I don't know, my uncle used to live right down the street. I'd let you know, something of that sort. Just make a little bit of a connection and then the conversation can go from there. But it makes you seem more human than just a big company trying to come in and buy properties.
Right. Absolutely. And I also think too, when they feel that connection, their guard can go down, right?
Yes.
It's very easy still to this day, when I get a call and someone's trying to sell me something, it might be the best product in the world. And if I feel like they're being salesy, I'm like, no, thank you. Please take me off your list,
Yeah.
So I think establishing that rapport is so important. And I think overlooked by a lot of people who are just doing it on the mass scale.
Yep.
And so the next thing, again, I want to ask you, because we have so many different parallel paths in our journeys. So I understand you just wrote a book or co-authored a book. Talk to me about this.
This is, yes. Well, thank you for bringing it up. This is a very surreal moment. I co-authored The Self-Managing Landlord by Bigger Pockets with my co-author, Grace Gudenkoff. We were approached by Bigger Pockets last year. They said they had a book idea they thought we'd be great for, and we were so excited to hear what it was going to be. And then when we got on the call with them and they told us it's going to be about self-managing, we were like, oh, wow, that's maybe the most boring topic we've ever heard of in our lives. But when Bigger Pockets asks you to write a book,
right.
you say yes.
You write that book.
You write that book. And we actually had a very short time period to do it. I think we started writing in September and we had to have it done by February. So we had a very short period of time. Luckily, there were two of us and we'd created a course on self-managing in the past. We had a very good outline. We've both done it, for a few years. So we were able to get it done fairly quickly. But it's a great book. It talks about how to treat your rentals like a business, how to set yourself up for success with your very first property. So you're not the self-managing landlord who's running around like a chicken with their head cut off, constantly having to reinvent the wheel because you never write anything down. So yeah, it was a fun little process. Never thought I would write a book, but here we are.
I love it. Here you are. So you and Grace, your co-author's name is Grace, correct?
Yep.
So you knew each other and you had built a course together.
Yes. So
prior. Okay.
Yes. Grace and I have actually known each other since 2021. She slid into my DMs on Instagram because she was also just starting out in real estate investing and was looking for other ladies in real estate. And we both were in Iowa at the time. She's since moved to Arizona, but she's like, wow, I can't believe there's another Iowa investor my age. We have to be BFFs. So we started a free meetup called Women Invest in Real Estate, WIRE for short. And we've been doing that for quite a few years together and been business partners in that way. So we're kind of like a package deal. A lot of people see us as a package deal. So they knew we were partners and approached us to write the book together. But we've known each other for a few years.
I love that. And I want to just encourage anyone listening to think about what your life could look like in 5 years. You absolutely never know what life is going to bring you. And I am a huge believer, Amelia. I'm going to guess that you're the same way because I've already established we're long lost family members. But, being intentional about what you want in your future as an entrepreneur is so incredibly important. And at the same time, life does throw you curveballs as well. And so it's, I think, so exciting to think about, hey, I'm intentional about what I want for my future. And when a curveball comes your way, an opportunity comes your way, it's so exciting to be able to make those decisions with confidence as well, right?
Totally.
So cool.
Yeah. I feel like as an investor or an entrepreneur or someone just getting started, you almost have to have a little bit of audacity, like audacity to believe in yourself that you can do these crazy big things. I'm from a town of 5,000 people. I never would have thought in a million years that I would own a portfolio of rental properties, own Wire, have co-authored a book for Bigger Pockets. It's just crazy, but I think I was just crazy enough. I had just enough audacity to do those things and take those risks.
Mm-hmm. And have you found yourself in any moments where you second guessed yourself? And if so, what did that feel like and how did you work through that?
Oh, weekly when you're a real estate investor. I feel, especially when you're self-managing rental properties, I think that it can be an emotional business if you allow it to be, because the product that you're providing to your customers is very important. This is people's housing. This is where they live. This is where they raise their families. And so when issues come up, even seemingly small issues can turn into very large issues because, again, this is where someone's living and residing. They need a nice, safe place to live. And sometimes you have to deal with tenants that have no patience, don't understand that you can't get someone to the property in 30 minutes to fix something. Understanding that they're maybe not your top priority that day because you have 1,000 other things going on. And it's a people business. So I would say if you're, monthly, I would say I've considered, man,